Hey everybody, so this is a follow-up video to my first proof of concept, the demo that I did 2 days ago on an AI that can build its own code and expand its own features. So different people asked me in different places where I posted the video a little bit of the background info and technical info on how it was working, both from the code generation perspective as well as the integration with the chatbot-like interface of GPT-3. So I hope I'll clear some of those doubts today. And first things first, also to explain a little bit the context of what I'm trying to do here. So I kind of began playing with OpenAI when I got access to GPT-3 some months ago. And it was a completely new world for me. It was super fun. Then after some time, I kind of lost interest, or rather ideas on what to do with it. That was until I met in the OpenAI community David Shapiro, which has amazing content. Props for David as well. If you're watching this, make sure you get to view his channel and his books. So I read his book, Natural Language Cognitive Architecture, and that was a big eye-opener for me. It began to make sense what we could build with something like GPT-3. So after that, I started brainstorming a lot of stuff, and David has been putting out a lot of interesting videos, a lot of tutorials on how to build different things with GPT-3. Make sure you check that his YouTube channel is really valuable for the OpenAI community. So I started to have this desire to build something beyond doing just small tests. So I started to building this AI entity, if we can call it that. Of course, it's far from that. But I started building this in a very rough way. I needed a way to interact with it, so I built the standard chatbot interface that we're all used to see. And that's what you can see here. I have a very drafty web app where I can just interact with it. I can see the logs and have a sandbox that kind of mimics the OpenAI playground. So apart from that, I wanted to build something more special. I wanted to keep evolving the app in different ways to explore ideas with AI. And I had three major goals. So one of them was to implement a memory system, so a way for the AI to memorize things about the conversations that you have been holding, about things that are important to you, and then be able to recollect those memories at the appropriate times. And then also to have memories at different layers, to have memories, what we call the, what's the name? I forgot the name. You know, like condensing memories, joining memories, like when we sleep, our brain kind of processes memories and reorganizes things in the brain. So also doing that in a kind of, when the AI is sleeping or inactive, it would process past memories, condense them, join them together, and summarize some of them, clear out old stuff that is not being used, stuff like that. So that was one major goal. The other one was to one thing that's I think OpenAI is also working on now, which is to be able to fetch information from the outside, from external sources. David also has good videos on this. So GPT-3 has a lot of knowledge, amazing amount of knowledge, but it doesn't have knowledge past his training date, which is 2019, if I recall correctly. And also, it's a challenge to know that the information that the AI is giving you is based on the truth. So the AI is very easily falls into this place where it begins to hallucinate and to make up stuff. So there are a few strategies with prompt engineering and playing with the temperature where you can get more reasonable AI that will only talk the truth, but still the capability of being able to fetch information from the outside is super interesting. So I could ask, like, who was the winner of this year's football tournament, and it will fetch that information. So that was another goal I had. And goal number 3 was to have this self-expanding AI. So I program it, I do it, I gave it some features in code, but then I want the AI to be able to self-expand, to work its own code, and then that both me and the AI itself are able to interact with the new code. So that was the idea here. And I think this one is maybe, at least from what I know, a little bit less explored, because codex is also a beta product, is not yet out, and we don't have too much information about it. And the only massive use of codex is with GitHub Copilot. So I wanted to explore that a little bit. And of course, these are three very big goals and long-term goals. And I decided to start with number 3, with the code expansion one, because I think that there are not so many people working on this, apart from the other two, the memories and the external source to gather more knowledge. Okay, so this is more or less the context of what I'm doing here. So this is the first demo, the first proof of concept code that I did. So it's very rough. I need to refactor a lot of things because I start coding and then I'm not sure if I'm doing things in the right way. Then I adjust the code and then it gets a little bit messy, so I need to refactor. But I didn't spend time refactoring, so many parts are still very messy. I have many ideas on how to organize and make this better. But for now, it served its purpose, which was to show off that it is possible and relatively easy to do this, okay? So 2 parts to this video. One, many people ask me, okay, so how is the code being generated? And how is the code being inserted into the application? So that's one part. And the second part is how the interaction with the chatbot part works, and how can I from that get the code. Oh, whoops, let me just, yeah, okay, have some issues here. Done with the camera. So how do we do that connection from the chatbot interface to the code part? So I'll start with the code part first, and let's start with an example similar than the one I showed in the demo. Let's say, okay, let's create a new feature to show all the prime numbers from 1 until a given number. Okay, so this is a little bit a complex request, because you'll see by the code that it's probably going to split this into 2 parts. There will be 2 functions, one to show the numbers, another to check if the number is prime. I'm not sure if it will do that. I think it will do that. And there's another thing here, which is I'm passing an argument. So I'm not telling you give me all the numbers from 1 to 10 or all the prime numbers from 1 to 10. I'm telling you give me the prime numbers from 1 until a number that I'll give to you. So this is where the playing with arguments also plays a big role here, and that's a very delicate part. It doesn't work all the time. I mean, it doesn't fail successfully all the time. So if I say, for example, I'll show you the bad parts. If I say, for example, okay, show me the prime numbers. Now this shouldn't work because I'm supposed to give a number, but sometimes it does work. It will assume a number, and sometimes, okay, it doesn't work. Not with the best error message, but I can see here from the logs in my other screen that it did understood the problem. I didn't pass enough data. I am supposed to pass a number, which is the top limit for this feature to work. So let's try again. Okay, show me the prime numbers until 15. Let's see how that works. Okay, almost worked fine. The code worked fine, but the result, the interpretation of the result was a little bit not so good. It missed the last number, 13. So yeah, the part where that's where the interface from the code to GPT-3 from to the chatbot, sometimes it's very delicate. I'll explain that in the end. Why is it so delicate? This needs a lot of work, but it did work correctly on the code part. So here you see that in the first part he was expecting more information to run the function. He didn't call it because, or it didn't work, and he understood that it didn't work. So now he told me there was something missing. He was supposed to tell me there was a number missing, but he didn't. And once I passed the desired information, it did work, but the results were not processed correctly by the chatbot. Okay, so how does this work on the back? So there are several steps, there are several prompts, both from the chatbot perspective and from the code generation perspective. So from the chatbot perspective, I'm doing usually 2 prompts to understand what is the user intent, and then another prompt to actually generate the reply that the bot will speak. And from the code perspective, we are also doing 3 prompts actually. Let me just check and we can see the code here. By the way, this is done using Laravel, which is a PHP framework, one of the most famous PHP frameworks. So it's quite easy to understand. The code is interpreted, so that's a big advantage because there is no compiling involved. I can just generate the code, and then because I have this kind of autoloader, once that code is generated, it has its own file, then it will be autoloaded in the application. That was something that some people asked me to see how the code changes before I made the request and after the request. The code of the application doesn't change, the code is expanded, so it's added by adding different files to it. Okay, so the original code is not changed ever. So here you can see in this folder AI code, I have now a new file exclusive for this request that I made for this new feature, which is called AI show prime numbers. And this is one of the refactors I want to do. I don't want to use one file per each feature. I want to put this in a class. I can speak about this in the end. I have some ideas on why this is important. So this code that you see here right now was fully generated by codex. It has a function to show the prime numbers until a given number. So as you can see, this is the request that I passed to the chatbot. It generates the doc block, so it's like meta information in comments that will specify what this function does, how many parameters it takes, what kind of parameters, what type of return does it do, and then it does the code. You'll see that he always does something special in the end. It always returns a string. So this is what this is doing, this function, for those of you who don't know PHP. So he's generating an array of prime numbers, which is fine. But if I pass array to the chatbot, the chatbot will probably get confused. So I pass an information to this code generation saying, always return a string. When necessary, please convert that result into a string. So that's easier for the chatbot to deal with. So implode will take an array, and then it will kind of convert that array into a string using a separator, which is in this case a comma. So what is interesting here is that to check if the number is prime, and I've run this test several times, sometimes the code is all here, different kind of code to check for prime numbers, so this function will be bigger. Other times it will do this, which is great. This is good code for me. It delegated this functionality to a different function, and this function now lives here and it's testing how a number is prime or not. This was generated by codex. I didn't pass any of this information, I just did this. Now he generated this, how to check if a number is prime or not. I pass a number, I return a boolean saying yes or no, and return true, otherwise return false according to the case. Okay, so okay, so as you can see, this now lives in this special file just for this feature. Okay, so what I do here when this code service is launched, which is the class responsible for calling code generated by the AI, What I do, I kind of in a very rough way, okay, this is very prone to errors. I will load all the files inside this folder, and I will load them into PHP. So all these functions are now known by PHP, and I can call them from anywhere else. So this is basically how I do the auto loading of a new feature. Okay. So it's very simple, nothing very special here. So let's see how the code generation works. Okay, so I have the feature builder class here. The feature builder does several steps, as you can see here. So we start by calling the gensig, which means like generate the signature for this new feature. And I use a special prompt for this. Let me see if I can. I'm not at home, so I'm using a different keyboard, and I'm not sure if this works for you. Okay, I'll get it from here. Just a second. Resources, prompts, gensig. Okay, so when I'm generating the signature, this is what I give to codex. Write the PHP function signature and doc block according to the specified intention. The function always returns a string. Now, because we cannot fine-tune codex yet, I had to do always few short prompts to codex to make sure I have it right. For this kind of prompts, in the end we don't need that, but for these ones I do need that. So I pass some examples. Intention, echo back a message to the user. The result should be echo a message to the user. So I'm just basically copying the intention, more or less. I'm specifying that there is a parameter and I'm returning a string, and I want him to do this, just the signature of the function. So for those of you who are familiar with PHP, this would be like the interface of the signature for the interface for this function. So I have now the name of the function, prefix AI, a name that is reasonable to what what is being requested, plus the parameters and the return type. So then I pass different examples, one with no parameters and one with more than one parameter. Get the weather summary for a given city and country. So we know city, country, get weather summary. Okay, and then I use this is a technique that I got from David Shapiro. Thank you, David, again. I use the prompt, the final prompt is intention with this particular keyword and the result which he will complete. So what I do here, I load this into this variable, the generate signature prompt, and then I will replace this with the intention. So I will fetch this intention here, and I will replace it with the intention that comes from the chatbot. So the chatbot will pass, the user is trying to create a new function, that function should do this. And this intention will be passed, will be replaced, will take the place of this intention keyword. So I'm basically going to do the same with the gen code prompt. The gen code prompt, let me show you the gen code prompt. The gen code prompt says generate the code for the function below. If necessary, convert to string before returning. So again, I'm telling you, before returning, please convert to string if necessary. It shouldn't be necessary to do this because the functions already have a string return type, but in some edge cases it was returning me something else. So I'm forcing him to please return to string always. So what I do here, I could just use the signature of the string. I'm basically injecting the signature of the string and then saying, okay, now build the function, build the code. And it works. It worked fine for, I think all cases it worked fine, but I wanted to try something else. I wanted to explore how creative codex could get if I tell him that there are other functionalities available that he can use. So what I did here, I'm including some, let's say, extra features which are part of the Laravel framework. And with this, I'm giving codex the hint that he is able to use all these features if he needs to. and it does. Like this one, for example, in when I did the demo for fetching Wikipedia or fetching XKCD comic strip. So he's going to do an HTTP request, and he's going to use this to do the HTTP request. One example I did was not in a demo. I was asking him to do to fetch, what was it? I think it was the CPU usage. And very interesting enough, he used the cache to cache the results for 60 seconds before refreshing that again. So my idea to expand this is to also insert here in the future. Oh, I have, sorry, I really can type with this keyboard. To have something like features here and inject into this the already available features that were generated by the AI before, and even others that are part of the core of the application. So by passing this hint, he will be able to also reutilize functions that he generated before, right? So this is the really interesting part. So right now, like in this prime number example, he generated this function on its own to check if a number is prime. But if I request the AI to add another feature to test if a number is prime or not, what he's going to do is going to create a new file to check if a number is prime or not, reply yes or no, but he's not going to use this function which already exists because he's not aware that this function already exists. So the idea here is to inject all the pre-existing functions, everything he can use that is available, and PHP also has a reflection API, so we would even be able to check all the classes and all the functions that the AI program has. Even if I don't give access to them, he will know that they exist, and he will be able to get them and use them if they are public. So this is very interesting. It's something that I want to explore. So I tried a very preliminary test, but it was not working so well. So right now we don't have this, but I'm passing this information. So he uses this to, whenever needed, he uses this to do his own code. And I can even show you another demo which was pretty interesting. Let's create a new feature to create a database table with a given name. And yeah, okay, let's keep it simple for now, just to make sure it works. I think this is a bug. This is part of the chatbot problems that it still needs to work it out. I think this is done, but this is the chatbot problem. It doesn't, oh, maybe it isn't. It didn't generate the file. Oh, it did. Okay. Okay, exactly. So this you can see here. To create the table, I didn't tell it what table, what columns to use, so it kind of is making stuff up. But what I wanted to show you here was look at how he uses the database functionality of Laravel that I passed it here. So if I don't include this here, and when I tried this prompt, what he did, he was using MySQL functions from PHP, PDO statements to create things in MySQL, and which was not desirable here because it doesn't have connection information for MySQL. So once I passed this here, he's going to use the database connection from Laravel. So he's going to use the database connection that is available for him to use, and he will be able to interact with it. So I could even say alter the options, your own options, alter the engine that you're using. Instead of Curie, switch to DaVinci, and he'll be able to change his own engine by doing this. So this is something that's very cool to be explored. So two examples are now passing these hints will generate different code because he knows he can work with these functions. Okay, let's go back to the feature builder. So I generate the prompt, I generate the signature, then I generate the code prompt, and then I also pass, this is nothing special, actually it's not being used. I was doing some experiments with dates. Okay, so then we get the code signature, so we replace the intention to generate the signature, and then we call the generate feature, which will just kind of put the signature together with the prompt, and then call OpenAI codex. I'm using code DaVinci 002 to generate the code for this. So notice one thing important here. Codex is and I even saw this post today in the OpenAI community forums. When people are used to play with GitHub gives you really smart autocomplete for your functions, and if you want him to generate the whole function, it does it really well. If you try the same thing with codex, you'll see that codex will generate the function maybe really good, but then you'll continue generating more functions with slightly different names or related functions, and you don't need that. So that was a problem. It doesn't know when to stop, and the stop tokens are very important here, and that's why also the few shot prompts are important, because what I did, I used, oh sorry, I got lost. I used this token as a stop, because when it's generating more than one function, it uses this to split them up. So I know that when this comes, is already hallucinating too much and I should stop. So this allows me, in cases like this, it generates this function, and then it generates another function, which is cool because I want this function for this to work. And then after this, he would continue to generate more functions here. So here it breaks. Okay, so this is absolutely essential to have these stop tokens. Okay, so what else? Let's see. I guess that's pretty much it for the feature builder. So after that, I basically save to a file. I get the code template to save to a file. So the code template is basically the same as the prompt. So I'm just passing him the first part of the PHP file with the headers, the include or uses in PHP terms that I want, that should match, of course, these ones here. And then he's going to fill up the code here. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So he generates a file like this. So this is the template, and then his generation is here. So after that, the file is here, is auto-loaded from the code service. Each file gets auto-loaded, and then because PHP is interpreted and because I'm processing each request in a queue, so it's not a long-lived process. PHP kind of, the whole application dies and is rebooted every time. So the new files are loaded when the new request comes. He's aware of the new features and he will be able to use them. So I think for the code part, this is it. There's not much more than this. So it's just a matter of playing a lot with prompt engineering, playing a lot with these prompts. I did try a lot of things, how to get the best wording, to get the best functions out. Generating doc blocks is absolutely essential in this case to make sure the function then is built with the right parameters and he knows what to use. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So, okay, so now the next part is when we are calling. Let's see if I can get this, okay, here. So when I call a function by the intention, so this will be the chatbot again. The user is trying to get all the prime numbers until 15. So this will be the intention, get all the prime numbers until 15. And I call the get function by intention. And this does something a little bit not so good. This is something that I need to improve using embeddings and text search, vector search. So for now I'm using, because I was not yet, I didn't have experience with embeddings and with using vector search. So I did it the lame way. So I have another prompt. Don't laugh at this, please. I have another prompt which is using, this is terrible. Okay, so this is like this. Write a call to the right method in order to obtain the intended result. None if none fit, no data if parameters are missing. And then again, I'm passing a few shots to explain to him what it should do. So in this case, I'm passing this example. Suppose I have echo message and add two numbers with these parameters. If the user says, I want to know the number of plates in the kitchen, so this is nonsense, there is no feature to do this. If the user wants to echo a message but doesn't say what the message is, I should return no data. If the user gives me the message, then I should write the function name with the parameters that are the intention. And then I give them another example, and then I do the same thing, intention, a placeholder to inject the intention, and then the answer. And basically this is what I'm doing here in the call feature, sorry, not here. In the get function by intention, I'm passing this prompt, and then I'm passing this to Code DaVinci, try to find the best match for this intention. Now I'm pretty sure that if I would pass the doc block of the description of the function and do an embedding search, this will probably get me far greater results, and the prompt will be the token use will be much lower. So this is definitely a place for improvement. Anyway, then if I get no data, I return this result, which the chatbot should interpret in the right way and tell me, hey, there is no enough parameters here. If I pass none, I pass this as a result, and the chatbot should read this and say, I don't know how to do this. If I do have a good function call, what I do first, if I check if that function exists. So if it doesn't exist, maybe I'm hallucinating. So the chatbot is kind of, the code is probably not getting things right. So this is kind of a fail mechanism not to try to call a non-existent function. If everything is okay, then I will call the function with the parameters. It's just a way to get all the parameters called. There's a lot of debugging info here. Don't worry about that. So then this result is passed to the chatbot, and the chatbot will use it as a meta information, as a hint to know what to reply. Okay? So as far as the code goes, I think that's it. There's nothing much more to add here. Yeah, I think that's it. So now from the chatbot perspective, you'll see there's a lot of hidden information that you're not seeing here because I'm hiding it. So if you click show meta, I just need to refresh this. Okay, so now you see all the meta information. So what I'm doing here, okay, so now it went crazy. What I'm doing here is I'm first calling a prompt for OpenAI to try to identify relevant meta information. Then with that meta information, I generate another prompt and I do a separate query to OpenAI to generate the response. So these are two different prompts, and I'm using two different engines to do this. The first one is using Curie engine, and it is a fine-tuned Curie. I had to fine-tune it because there was no way I would be able to get all this meta information with the exact syntax that I wanted it to be able to pass to the other code generation service later. So I had to fine-tune it, and in order to fine-tune it, you have to use Curie because DaVinci is stupidly expensive to use after you fine-tune it. And from a chatbot perspective, this would get very expensive. So I tried to get a fine-tuned Curie to generate this meta information. I pass that meta information, I play with it, I inject things into it. That is another important aspect of it. And then with that, I build another prompt with the previous chat messages, so kind of a context, plus the meta information. And then I ask DaVinci to generate the response without any fine-tuning and without any few shot or one-shot prompt. I think I'll just give it a little bit of context of what is this AI, what is it supposed to do. Then I inject all this stuff, and then DaVinci generates a response. So because these are two different engines, and one is fine-tuned, the other isn't, sometimes you get these little bit off messages that sometimes don't make too much sense, but most of the time it's okay. So I try to identify a few things. First, I try to identify the action. What is the user trying me to achieve? So in this case, I cannot go up because it kind of trims this chat message, this chat window to the most recent messages. So here I was trying to create a new feature to show the prime numbers from 1 until we give a number. The topics information is important, not so much for this code part, although here we know that the topic of the discussion is the features of the bot. But if we talk about something else, he will generate different topics. This will be used later for the memory part of the AI. So I'll use these topics to fetch memories related with things. So let's talk about astronomy. What is the biggest planet in the solar system? I hope it doesn't let me down. Okay, so now tell Nuno the biggest planet in the solar system. That's the action that the AI should be doing. The topics is planets, solar system. Memorize. Okay, this one is a little bit off. So this needs a lot of fine tuning because I didn't work so much with the memory part yet. So it needs a lot of fine tuning. But then DaVinci will have these hints. DaVinci will know that this is my action. This is the topic of discussion. And this makes a difference. I tried different times. When you have the action and the topic of discussion, it's much easier to guide to the correct answer. So especially with Curie, DaVinci is really smart to infer what you're trying to do. So this is another example how we will switch the discussion and add and remove topics according to what you're doing. You can see that it removed the feature topic, not because this was a second message, but because it really noticed that this topic is not related with the previous one. Okay. So if I would now talk about another feature to add related with this, he will just add featured but retain these topics. And I have these on the sidebar just to keep an eye on what are the topics if I'm not viewing the meta information. So when I have this keyword call feature and the keyword new feature, I intercept this meta information and I call the code part. And then I will inject back the result of that code part. So here you'll see result, not enough data to call the feature. Okay, correct. I didn't have enough result. So this is correct. He did get it that I didn't have enough data. DaVinci didn't interpret this correctly. So this was fine, this wasn't. Again, a little bit out of sync here. So, but this is basically what I do. I interfere with this metadata. I kind of wait for these special keywords, and I call different things. I inject results back in the same way that in the future I will inject memories. So topic is planets. Okay, there was a memory about something. Let me inject it here. So instead of memorize, I will have memory. Nuno spoke about this, this, and this. And this will guide the prompt, the AI for how to reply back. So this is basically how the interface between GPT-3 chat bot is working together with the code part. So in the end, when the feature is ready, he will inject this, inform them that the feature is ready, and then basically DaVinci should kind of give me a better reply here. Nuno tell me whether she could. Okay, this is not the perfect reply, but again, that's the problem with having one fine-tuned and the other is not fine-tuned. But I think at least you got a picture on how this works. And right now there's pretty not much more to this than what I've shown here. If there's anything more more specific than you want me to clarify, please just leave a comment or get in touch with me. I'm in David Shapiro's Discord all the time, open AI community forums. And yeah, I guess that's it. Let me see if there's anything else worth mentioning regarding the code. No, I think that's it. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope this was clarifying for those of you who are curious. And again, if you have any comments, just let me know. And hope this was fun. There's really a lot of potential to explore here. I have a lot of ideas on how to continue using this. I had to do a lot of refactoring, like I mentioned. The part of injecting pre-existing functions, I think, will open a lot of doors. Using the reflection API to let the AI inspect its own code. Yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff. Today in David's Discord, which actually is called now, it's not David's Discord, it has a name. It's called the Cognitive AI Lab. So we were discussing also the idea to generate not just functions, but also code on the fly, like store code on the fly on AWS Lambda, for instance, and then generate API endpoints to interact with that code. So there's a lot of stuff to explore here. One of my other goals, tiny goal now inside this, is to run code without generating code. So instead of generating a file, loading the file, just generate code and run it immediately. So if I say something, okay, tell me what is the biggest file in my home folder or inside my documents folder, he will get the code to run that. He will run the code, give me the result, but not save it anywhere. So this is something that I want to do as well. So yeah, a lot of ideas to explore, and I hope more people will join this code part, because it's really interesting what it can do. Yeah, so again, thanks for watching, and bye bye.